Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Refuge from Narcissism, and this refugee video is sponsored by contribution from Jennifer, and she sent in an audio file of her speaking. Ooh, it's long. It's 54 minutes. I didn't realize it was that long, but here we go.
Hey, Ollie. I just want to start this by saying thank you for your channel. You are incredibly entertaining.
Thank you.
I don't have near the mouth that you do, but you say a lot of things that I think in my brain. So, in the midst of discovering horrors in my own life from listening to other people's testimonies, I just break out in complete stitches when you say certain things. Oh my gosh. It's awesome. That in and of itself is a huge therapy. Thank you. Okay. Gosh, where does one even start? You know, I think I sent an email to you maybe over 2 years ago regarding my dad. If I'm remembering correctly, the first video that you did for me was Don't Accept Another Narcissist Trash. I think that's the title.
Okay.
And I want to say in that first video, I had said something about my parents, and they weren't the focus at all. At that time, it was my ex. But you had mentioned that my dad is a narcissist, and I remember at the time I was like, no way, no way. It didn't stay in my mind long at all, because in my mind then, there was just no way my dad's a narc.
I think you might have actually emailed me back.
I have been in the biggest denial regarding my parents for my whole life. And
if I'm remembering correctly, I think you might have emailed me back saying no, and I'm like, yeah. It wasn't, I don't remember it being harsh or anything, but I did. It could be somebody else, but it sounds familiar. I remember the video. Because the point of the video is, why are you accepting someone else's trash? If it was about a relationship, then yeah, because it's always about drilling down. There's a reason why you were accepting of the situation you were in.
I want to say to anyone listening, if you've been in a narcissistic relationship, a romantic relationship, please, 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 for your own sake and your own health and your own well-being, research narcissistic parents and take a really, really good look at your parents. My dad is a covert narc, and he hides it so well. But one of the main reasons it's hidden, and I'm realizing this in the last couple of days, and it's blowing my mind, is because they have cultivated such a dynamic in the family. Like, okay, I'll explain it with my family. So my dad supposedly has ADD, has had it for a long time, and has been on Prozac for a long time with it. And I think he got on it, I don't know if some counselor in the past thought that his ADD was causing his rages. I grew up just with a raging dad. But what's happened in our family is that my dad will say something inappropriate or criticizing, or he'll be judgmental. Sometimes he just does things that are so off the wall. It's just, the whole family is like, what in the world? My mom has refused to take responsibility for him, so if one of us comes to her and says, why did dad do that? She just throws her hands up and she's like, that's your dad, I'm not responsible for him. So that's kind of how that's been for years with my mom. But he has cultivated so evil geniusly this dynamic in our family where he has a free pass. His quirkiness and his forgetfulness and, oh, that's just your dad, and oh, he loves you. This coming from my mom, this last two comments. He gets away with everything. He gets away with everything, Ollie.
No, I understand. Listen, we had a hero. That's just your mother. That's just your mother. That's yeah. Well, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable answer. Okay, because they know what they're doing. That's why they do it. They get off on the uncomfortableness. They get off on it. They love it. That's why they're doing it. It's almost like a sexual thrill. At least in my mother's case it was. Oh, that's just your mother, no matter what you did. Oh, that's just, even though, like, there'd be some fucking battle royals. No, at the end of the day, oh, that's just your mother.
And the newest member of our family, my sister-in-law, and this is not including my husband, she has come to me, and even my brother, her husband, they've both come to me, more so her, and they're like, what the hell was that? And I've defended my dad in the past. I took it hook, line, and sinker, Ollie. I was right on that bandwagon, waving my banner and shouting my cheers of my dad. It's just how he is. He's just weird.
Nobody's that weird.
He's a jerk. He's a jerk. He hides behind this cultivated facade of having ADD and being impulsive. So I'm going to back up a little bit. So my dad, as long as my mom has known him, I've heard so many stories and I've been witness to some of them. But my dad he'll be in a building, a hospital, for example. He'll see a sign on the door that says personnel only or doctors only, and he will bust through those doors so fast and just start exploring. He will drive down one-way roads. He will exit out of entrances and entrance out of exits. He and my mom were here for 4th of July, and I told him to go straight because I was guiding him in a town he's never been in. And he doesn't go straight. He doesn't listen to me. He takes a right. Then he drives over caution tape where there's like orange cones and caution tape like blocking off a whole bunch of parking places. And he just drives over the caution tape. And I'm like, what is he doing? One time at church, my mom told me this story. One time at church, they were having Wednesday night dinner. It was kind of like a potluck sort of thing, and there was a line of people waiting to eat, like a long line. And my dad, he walks up to someone near the front of the line and starts talking to them. And he keeps talking to them as they inch up to the front of the line, and then when they get to the front of the line, he gets his food. It's evil genius.
He's a schmoll. I mean, he's just like a fucking schmoll. Your dad sucks. My mother wasn't to that extent, okay, but like off-limit signs and like she wasn't driving over traffic cones unless she wasn't paying attention. But like other stuff like those are mere suggestions. Those are not for me. It's like I want to know. So therefore, and she gets a lot of that, and she got a lot of that from her mother, Virginia, who is even worse. So I get that.
I'm just blown away. It reminds me of ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. I'm sitting here laughing. I'm going through a lot of pain, but this sharing this with you and just even imagining the things that you might say, pausing and saying, it's already cracking me up. But jeez. So I'm trying to think of some other stories just to entertain you. I'll go to some of the more infuriating stories. Okay, so I'm an artist. I've always been an artist, and my parents never complimented me. They never encouraged me. They never supported me. I just don't remember that. And my low self-esteem is evidence of that. So I did a small watercolor art piece for a family friend of ours that lives back in the state in the town they live in. And my now husband and I, who were both black sheep, by the way. His dad is a narcissist. we came to my parents' town for, I think, a holiday. I think it might have, I don't remember what visit it was. But I brought this artwork with me. It was a watercolor and pen and ink. And he looked at it. While he was looking at it, he took a picture of it with his iPad. And while that's happening, I'm discussing with my husband because he had asked me how much I was going to charge our family friend.
Took a picture. I'm like, okay, boomer. Okay, boomer.
For the painting. And I told him, and my husband was saying, I don't think that's enough. He values my artwork and my time and my talent, and he didn't think that I was charging enough. And while this conversation's going on between my husband and I, my dad is sitting at the table taking a picture of this piece of art that I had painted. And he goes, me, 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 me. And I'm telling you, I have been so snowed. Like, I sort of noticed the sound, but already, right off the bat, I am, like, what is the word? I'm minimizing it. I'm making excuses in my thoughts for that sound that he's making that's, like, childish and, like, sounds like a Muppet, and he's mocking me. And you know what my brain could focus on? The only thing my brain could focus on was my heart inside of me was singing because I saw him taking a picture of my artwork. I mean, how effed up is a situation like that?
Yeah, you're accepting. You're so overly joyed over these crumbs of respect or love or appreciation you think you're getting. But now here you are on this crossroad in your career, in your life, in your art, in your development. Here's a moment where your husband's telling you you're undervaluing yourself. And this is crucial. This is a crucial time. This is a crucial moment in your life, right here, right now. Hey, maybe I am undervaluing myself. Maybe here's where I take a shot and find out what I'm actually worth. Your father is seeing this going down, and he's sabotaging it right in front of your eyes. Just after you just accepted these morsels of fucking boomer bullshit as some kind of overwhelming appreciation of your art finally. Because Boomer has his fucking iPad out. Glad that was a very short trip for you. I am glad that it turned out to be a very short trip for you. And this right here should be right here. It should be etched into your brain of how it's not just how he is. He didn't just decide to be an asshole at that point because that's just how he is. He saw you at a crucial moment in your life with your art, with your career, with your confidence, with your self-esteem, and he tried to crush it. It is just how he is, just not in the way you think. Oh, it's how he is, all right. He's a fucking narcissistic twat bag. That's how it is. That's how he is. But not, that's just how he is. No. No, that is how he is.
All three of those things that was happening, like, all at once. So I think I mentioned to you this happening the last time I sent in an email before I moved out of my parents' house and moved 3 states away, thank you God. I was at the table with my dad and my mom and my nephew, and I don't know how we got on the subject of taxes, but I spoke up to be a part of the conversation, and I mentioned something about how I had heard that income tax is illegal, that it's not a law. I've read a lot of things on it. I don't know if they've changed it into a law since these articles were published or these books. But my dad, I cannot for the life of me remember what he said, but he said something really humiliating to me in front of my mom and my nephew. My nephew at the time was like 21. And it so caught me off guard. And I got so angry. I stood up and I left the table. And that's very, very rare for me. And as I was walking up the steps, he was laughing, which pissed me off even more. I could not believe that he was laughing at me for making me angry. I mean, it's, out of all the memories I have, that one in particular, it's just got a big old neon narcissistic pin stuck in it. I think I did talk to you about this one with the email, because I think I sent you a picture of the letter that he wrote me afterwards, and I don't know if you read it, because you didn't read it on the video, I don't think. But he'd said, "I'm kind of sorry," and he pretty much talked about himself and how he was embarrassed. I think he said he was embarrassed for me, but I think I embarrassed him. The funny
For not, this is for the taxes thing? He's embarrassed for you? Well, the thing with the taxes is, there was no income tax in this country before like 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created. Now, what that means going forward, I mean, the Federal Reserve is a pretty fucked up place. Okay, I mean, I don't know. I would assume they throw enough people in jail for it. So, but I mean, I've read I think I've read a lot of what you've read. You're never going to win that argument. You're never going to win that argument.
thing is, he does not like other people thinking things differently than him. And I'm guessing this is a narc thing. I'm reading a really good book right now. It's called Narcissistic Fathers. I highly recommend it to people. It addresses daughters and sons of narcissistic fathers. I'm highlighting like almost every page. So when my husband first came to visit my family, my dad took him and he ushered him around the house to show off all of his work awards and medals, which is so odd to me. Like, who does that? It honestly seems very insecure to me. It screams insecurity. Like, here, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm just meeting you for the first time. Let me usher you around and give you a tour of all of these amazing things that I've done. Now, a little backstory on my husband. When we met, he was living with his grandmother and taking care of her full time, and he was getting paid pennies by his family. And he didn't have a job at the time. We're both Christian, and he really believed that God wanted him to pay attention to his grandmother. And anytime he'd leave, she would just freak out with anxiety. And it took hours, if not days, to kind of get her back on track. So there was a lot of things playing into that. But my dad knew that this man had nothing financially to offer me. But Ollie, I'm telling you, this wonderful man who is also a black sheep of his family, he is the most loving, caring, patient, kind, accepting. He's amazing. He's amazing. I don't even know. It's a miracle that we met. It's a miracle that he's my husband. I wish everybody could have a spouse like this, and it's not in a boasting way. It's in every person should be with someone that loves them like this. I never knew this could be possible. I never knew. And I think the reason we work so well together is because we've both been through narcissistic abuse. And it's in our families. So, back to my story. So, yeah, he paraded my husband all over the place. And my husband thought it was really weird. He was like, what was that about? So, we had a conversation with my dad, I want to say almost a year and a half ago. So here's how it went. My mom and I were talking via text, and I told her that I wanted to call them and have a phone conversation with them just to chat and catch up. We just were calling to visit. Now, at this time, my parents knew that both of us were working jobs that it just was making things financially tight while we were looking for other things, which is a lot of people's stories. So my mom, in passing, I found out later after this long conversation that was hellish, I found out later that my mom had this like harebrained idea that we were going to be calling them for money. So she mentions it to my dad, and my dad's anxiety like freaks out. So my dad calls me. We were going to call them at 6. He called like a few minutes before 6, and I thought that was kind of strange. So we get on the phone with them. They're on speakerphone, and my dad just launches into this long-ass speech. And he's going on about how sometimes he had 3 jobs, and sometimes he had 5 jobs, and you know, he was saying things like, you know, gosh, sometimes it was really tight, but I made the fur fly, and, you know, I did all these things, and me, blah, blah, blah. And my husband and I are looking at each other like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is this about? Right. We were so confused, Ollie, so confused. So finally, after like 45 minutes of this random beat around the bush conversation where the whole time our like eyebrows and foreheads are squinched because we're like trying to think really hard what the heck is going on. We finally realize that my dad is talking about jobs. He's in this full-on speech, guilt and shame monologue where he's just boasting about himself, and he's making us feel like crap, like absolute crap about ourselves and our situation in life. And in the process of this, granted, before I left my ex Narc, I had ran a couple of businesses, a home improvement business for a few years with my ex, Narcissist, and we had an antique store, and we ran it for like 7 years. And I worked full time, like I worked almost 70 hours a week. I mean, it was insanity because my ex Narc was a workaholic. So he calls me part-time Jen. And it was like someone stabbed me. It was like the one of the few areas that are very...
I think I remember you telling me this. And I remember something like this. It might be against someone else, because other than that, you have a similar story to someone else then.
Very, very raw and sensitive. He just like took a knife and stabbed me right in the heart. And it made me so angry. And because it's my parents, it was kind of like I felt, you know, that need to be respectful. And they're the parent, and I have always still felt like the child, even though I'm 40. I just felt like I couldn't speak up. I couldn't get angry. It's just, I freeze. So we get off the phone, and it ended fairly well. But of course, after the fact, I'm thinking of all the things that he said. And I'm getting angrier and angrier and angrier. I was shaking. I was so angry. He insulted me a couple of times during that conversation.
Well, the whole conversation itself is an insult. You didn't ask him for money. He just calls unsolicited and starts giving you lectures because he doesn't like your careers. He doesn't like you being an artist. He don't like it. And he's trying to sabotage it.
Calling me part-time Jen was like the worst. So I ended up emailing him. I think I went into contact for a while, and then I emailed him and I set a boundary with him, telling him I do not, under any circumstances, and I told him I was setting a boundary, we are not going to talk about jobs and insurance and stuff, benefits, all that stuff. And you know what he did? I bet you can guess. He sent me an email with a link to an article describing the differences between a full-time job and a full-time job with benefits. I can hear all your listeners just screaming.
They can't. He has to. You must comply. You must obey. You must. He's not going to stop.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it gets better. That's when, after he did that, that's when I went no contact for a while. I was so angry. My mom and I were still talking, and, you know, after finding out, after that horrible phone conversation, that she was the one that was hypothesizing on why we were calling, which is really strange to me because
Yeah, because your mother's torched him up. Your mother's not innocent. She's his handler. She goes toward, believe me, a lot of the stuff coming out of his mouth came out of her mouth first. I promise you. She's his muse. She's just as guilty. Just as guilty. You can't go no contact with one and not the other one.
told them we were calling to visit. Like, I'm sorry, can your daughter and your son-in-law not just call for a visit? Like, when did that become suspicious? I know that they knew that things were tight for us financially, like we weren't in a spot or anything, but it just was weird. So I found out after the fact when my mom called me to apologize for my dad and that whole conversation. And I told her, you know, she told me that she had mentioned the money thing, and so things started to click, because even after we got off the phone, I still was like, what was that? It's like he was talking in circles, which, you know, word salad. So fast forward a year and a half, things were kind of doing better with jobs. My husband was working about 3 jobs, all work from home because of the corona. Oh my gosh, that was something else. Listen to this, Ollie. I'm sorry, I forgot. During this weird phone conversation where my dad was insulting me and just parading his achievements like a peacock with huge tail feathers that stink, we were trying to explain to him that with COVID hitting, we had both a really hard time finding jobs. You know, all the applications now, they're all online. Nobody wants to meet you for an interview. It's just really, really difficult. And so we were explaining that, and my dad's like, you know, don't lay this at the feet of COVID. And we were just like, what the hell, dude? You have not walked in our shoes. You have not sat here as we put out tons and tons and tons and tons of applications. It's so infuriating and so just invalidating.
Yeah, well, he's also got boomer mentality. He thinks you just show up in the personnel office, fill out an application, you know, in a nice suit, and that's it. It's easy as that. You're just not trying.
And he also said that he didn't want to let us borrow money because he didn't want to steal our victories. So have a heyday with that one. Because here's the thing, Ollie, I've always been in the mind frame and heart frame of family help each other. Like, you go to your family and you say, we're here for you no matter what has happened, just come to us. And if we can help you out financially, we would, or give you a loan. I don't have kids, I'm just saying hypothetically. Or if you come to us for money and we don't feel comfortable at the time, like say you've come to us for money a couple of times and we're starting to feel uncomfortable, like maybe we're enabling you, then say no. Like, it should be an open relationship to come to your family for help. But that hasn't been the case here. So I think I'm done with that part of the story. I hope you guys are following me. So fast forward a year and a half. My husband was working 3 jobs. I have a job that pays really well, but it doesn't have benefits. So my mom and dad came to visit like a month ago, and I have a birthday coming up, but my husband decided to, him and his sister, he and his sister decided to plan a surprise birthday party for me. Super, super sweet. I was with my ex for 14 years. He had never done anything like that. This man is so loving, and his sister is so loving, and I keep going to different stories because it keeps tweaking my brain. I'll get to that later. So on a Friday, a few weeks back, my husband and I show up at his sister's house for dinner, and the door swings open and everyone yells surprise, and I am completely shocked. I've never had a surprise birthday party before. It was just unreal. And my parents were there. They kind of hopped out from behind the door and they yelled surprise, and I was like totally in shock because they live, you know, hours and hours and hours away, and they drove all this way. And I was so touched. I just was so incredibly touched. So we have dinner, then we sit down, and my sister-in-law and her family do this thing where whoever's birthday it is, they sit in a chair in the living room and they get to open gifts, and they have their cake brought out to them, and they get pictures taken. And this particular birthday was very special because of one of my sister-in-law's daughters had a graduation, and they own and run a small private school. And so they only have like 10 to 12 seniors that graduate each year. So one of their daughters was graduating, and the way they do it is just beautiful. Like, they have the upcoming graduate pick someone in their family or someone in their life to come up and share stories or just say wonderful things about the graduates. And there's a video with photos of them as a baby growing up to the age that they are at now. And it's just this beautiful display of love and support and encouragement. And this past graduation that I went to for one of their daughters, I got so upset. We left. I mean, I could cry right now just thinking about it. We left. We were stopping to get gas. And I just bust out crying in the car. I was so upset. I didn't get a graduation party. I didn't get anything. I don't even remember getting a graduation gift. I had a graduation party at our church with all the graduates in our youth group. That was the graduation party. And my parents they're not open people with emotions or compliments or support or encouragement. There's just hardly any. I was starving as a kid for attention and just any kind of acknowledgement or support. And the horrible thing was that I was looking to these people for my identity that whole time, and they weren't mirroring it back to me. I wanted them to tell me who I was, and they weren't doing it. And I
gotta tell you this. I mean, you gotta get better control over your emotions, because I mean, I understand why you broke down and you got upset, but that's somebody else's party as well. You know, that's another kid's party, and you don't want to make yourself the focus of somebody else's part. You know, that's like borderline behavior. I'm not saying you're borderline, okay, but you have to get control. You can't do that to another kid. You can't.
felt so empty and like I just was a piece of shit. So I was in the car crying. We got back to the house, and my husband's just letting me lay in his arms. He's holding me, and I'm just wailing, crying. And at some points I'm screaming because there was just so much pain coming up. So I shared this with my sister-in-law, and of course I shared it with my husband, and she was just so moved by it and so upset that she sees me and she delights in me. And so when she had this idea for the surprise birthday party, she wanted to do something like that graduation that they give their students. And so my husband had made a slideshow of all these pictures of me with music. And his sister had written this long speech about me and about the things that she sees in me and the talent and the heart and how I've poured into her kids since I've moved here. Just all of this wonderful stuff. So she had this speech ready. And she gets up to read the speech, sort of like to set the stage for everybody to share after her. And my dad gets up and he's like, "Shouldn't the father go first?" And my sister-in-law was like, "Okay, all right, go ahead, Dad." And he got up, and my dad just goes into the story about when I was born, and I was a preemie, so I was 2 months premature. And how he would sneak off from work and come visit me in the hospital, and he would change my diaper that was way too big, and he would feed me. And the whole time he's talking about himself. And here's the thing. He didn't say anything more about me but that. He didn't talk about me as a teenager. He didn't talk about me at all as the adult I am now. He didn't talk about the abusive marriage I went through for 14 years and how I was strong enough to get out of that. How I have run businesses before, like nothing. It was about him taking care of his little premature little baby. And my husband and his sister kind of made eyes at each other like it was a little bit weird. So anyway, I actually recorded it. I could send in the recording. That'd be funny. So then everything was great. I was smiling. It was so wonderful. Everyone spoke. My mom spoke. Her speech was a lot better. Her stories and sharing was a lot better. And the kids, got up and spoke and stuff. It just was wonderful. And I was smiling so hard the whole night that my face hurt and I got a really bad headache. But it was also really painful. I don't know about any other survivors, but when you go through neglect, especially as a child and then growing up as an adult, you don't feel like you're just not used to having attention on you. And so to have all of that focused attention on me, it was almost physically painful. And I remember thinking in the middle of this party, I was thinking, I cannot wait for this to be over. I just wanted to leave.
It's like a sensory overload. And, you almost feel guilty at the end of it. Like, I have a hard time hearing compliments. And like you got what you wanted, but you know, be careful not to try to chase that at all times. Because if you try to chase that at all times, then you run the risk of some borderline behavior, of the histrionics and the emotions, and you don't want that either. Because if you try to duplicate that, you know, your 40th birthday, that feeling, okay, it's almost going to become like a drug.
So here's the kicker. So my parents were staying the night in a hotel, and they wanted to come by with coffee and donuts or something in the morning. So my husband and I were really cool about that. We were like, yeah, that's great. And the next morning, my parents show up, and they are professing believers in Jesus. And we sit down, and I make coffee, and we serve out some coffee cake. And my dad pulls up a chair next to our coffee table as I'm sitting on the floor next to it. We've got like a love seat and a lazy boy. And so my mom was on the love seat, husband's in the lazy boy. My dad pulls up this chair, and I'm sitting on the floor next to him. So he's like way above me. And we read this devotional that is talking about truth and love and how you can't separate the two. And my dad, he's just like acting really surprised and shocked over this devotional. And he starts saying, you know, it's such a blessing that we came here. We got to see, you know, my daughter's support system here. And I just see that she's an adult. Then, on the back end of that, he goes right back into another speech. Oh my gosh, Ollie, I'm sitting there on the floor, like, smiling up at him because he just, like, sort of paid me a compliment, which I'm not used to. And I'm looking up at him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can just see it coming. I'm like, here he goes. Here he goes. He's going to do it.
Here's the heel
He's going to cross the boundary. I was not laughing at the time. I was, gosh, what was I feeling? Dread. I was feeling dread. Like watching a car accident that you can't stop from happening. And so there he goes, back into his stories about all the jobs he had and boasting, and in the process making us feel like absolute crap. And he kept saying, oh, I'm a traditionalist, like we're traditionalists. And he never stops to explain, like we're supposed to know what you mean by that. And so, oh my gosh, I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking at my mom across the coffee table, and she looks so uncomfortable, like she's going to be sick. And she's not making eye contact with any of us. She's looking down. I can hear my husband, like, taking deep breaths and sighing while he's sitting in the chair. And my dad is just, he doesn't even make a point. It's so weird, Ollie. So I don't remember how.
Well, that's what you got to be like, does this story have a point? Is it going anywhere? Like where are we going? I mean, you got to call him out. Where are we going with this? Do you have any new information that you haven't told us 700 times? No? Well, let's talk about something else then. But he can't, and he won't.
My gosh, I'm going to have to record any conversation I have with this man from here until the end of time, because I would just love to send that video clip or audio clip to you, because it's just insane. It's so insane. So he pretty much is sort of focusing his attention on my husband. And he's not making much sense, but kind of in a roundabout way, we understand what he's trying to say. And I'm just crushed and just in shock and angry and just in shock. I can't believe he's doing this. And then you know what he says? It keeps getting better and better. He says, God told me through this devotion that you just read that I had to speak up and say something. Because I care about you, you're my daughter, and I worry about you.
And there we go. And then God speaks through me, therefore I am God, I am the voice of God. Every time with these religious narcissists. Every freaking time. I told you, I keep telling you.
And you're my daughter. So his attention's on my husband. And my husband is sitting there, and he does not look happy. And you'll be so proud of him, Ollie. He said right out off the bat, he said, I'm triggered. and I am not happy. And my dad's like, oh, okay. My dad is just this big goofball. He just but it's not a funny or fun or lovely, delightful goofballness. It's irritating. And so my husband said that, and then he said, I'm really upset that when we planned this weekend, it was supposed to be about celebrating your daughter. And I told you guys this, and you're bringing this up, which is ruining the weekend. And that this is about you. It's not about your daughter. And he also said, I'm mad because your daughter has set a boundary with you not to talk about this stuff, and here you are talking about it. So I don't even remember. My heartbeat and blood pressure was just so in my head. It was hard to kind of keep track with some of the stuff that was being said. My mom didn't really say anything, and we had a chiropractor appointment. So I looked over my shoulder and I was like, look, oh, the other thing they threw in there was they wanted us to explain to them why we weren't going to church.
None of your business. Here's my thing. Here's the thing you gotta understand. Okay. Most narcissists care more about their perception to the outside world than they do with their own family. Right? Now, in your father's case, because he violates every boundary everywhere, whether it's family or not. So if he's going to violate boundaries, go into restricted areas, go into, locked up areas, don't give a fuck about boundaries of people he cares more about, what do you makes you think he's going to respect your boundaries? It's never going to happen. Never.
And I had told my dad before he went down his speech, when he first started, I said, it's things like this that make me feel this big and like I'm 12 years old. And he just continued on. He just dove right into his speech after hearing his daughter say that what you're doing here is making your daughter feel like an inch big and she feels like she's 12. So I told them that we didn't have enough time to get into it and that we needed to leave. And we got up, and my dad actually gleefully told my husband that he was glad that he was triggered because it showed that he cared. What? What does that even mean? I mean,
he's judging you. He's playing God, he's playing God over you. Like toys. That's what that means. And never say the word triggered. Don't say it just as a bad word to say. Triggered is what you call someone else when they get mad. You never say you're triggered. No, I'm pissed. I'm annoyed. I'm pissed off. I'm not triggered. I'm pissed. You're pissing me off. I told you not to do this weekend. It was about her birthday. I'm not triggered. I'm pissed the fuck off.
And I guess if my husband were a deadbeat, good-for-nothing loser that was just a loser, he wouldn't have gotten upset at the things that my dad said. But see, here's the thing. The reason he got mad, it wasn't about jobs and not having a full-time job and not having benefits. It was the reason my husband got mad was because he took the focus off of me, my surprise birthday party weekend, and the very little time we had to spend with him, he decided to go down this path and blow past my personal boundary with him and my mom the second time. So why would my dad be glad that he was triggered? It's like my dad twisted it to make it what he wanted it to be. He was triggered about the job situation, but that's not what he was triggered about at all. He was triggered about what it was doing to me and what he was doing to me.
It's not about the job. It's about ruining your weekend. That's all he wanted to do was ruin. He knew you had a good night, and he wants to ruin it. Just like when your husband told you you were undercharging. He saw you at a crossroad. Every time, if you're going to invite this guy into the biggest times of your life, he's going to ruin it every single time.
So we gave some very awkward hugs. They left, and I told my husband that I was very, very proud of him and that I really appreciated him sticking up for me. And he even was kind of surprised. He thought maybe I was going to be upset that he stood up to my dad. But I was like, no, not at all. It's so nice to have an advocate in my corner for once. My gosh, especially with family. So I was fine at the time. I was totally fine, and I just kind of thought it was hilarious. But a few days later, it just hit me how pissed off I was. Again, he doesn't see me as an adult. He doesn't see me as a separate person from him that can have separate thoughts and feelings and decisions and whatever. He is being guilting and shaming and looking down on us. Ollie, we are so happy and healthy. And after being through 14 years of narcissistic abuse, one of the biggest things I've learned is that you can't garner happiness from a job or from a paycheck or from a 401k or benefits. I had so much material things when I was in my past marriage with a covert narcissist, or I think you think he's a malignant because he would blow up on me. I got out of that marriage, and the idea of buying stuff made me want to throw up. I was so over any kind of materialism. My ex was a huge materialist. I kind of got into it a little bit, buying things to try to make yourself feel better when you're in such a hellish experience and you feel like you're never going to get out. But one of the reasons my now husband and I are together is because he and I both care most about relationships. When we struggle financially, we struggle together and we struggle as a team. And it's even a delight in the sense that being a team with someone is very different than trying to be a team in a narcissistic relationship, especially with finances. Being able to struggle as a team and cling to one another is such a delight. It's such an awesome thing. And we grow and we change and we learn and we're there for each other. It's wonderful. If anything, it's brought us closer together. And my family just seems to put such an importance on money. And I'm just flabbergasted. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, you guys claim to be believers. What does the Bible say about money? It's the root of all evil. What is your problem? Like, who are you?
Hypocrites. They use the religion for where it benefits them, and the parts that don't, they don't talk about. That's how Bible thumpers are. But that's how you go at them. That's how you attack this. Like, well, what happened here? You take that Bible and you shove it right back in their face. Like, what are we talking about here? Jesus was throwing over change tables. What are we talking about here? Money. Materialism.
I don't know these people. It's like I know these versions of them that I've had in my head my entire life to sort of shield me from who they really were. It's like I couldn't see them for who they really were. I couldn't handle it. So I just projected onto them, I guess.
You saw them as what you wanted to be, not what they are.
I'm getting a headache talking about this stuff. It's just so much tension. So then that was Saturday morning. Tuesday evening, my mom texts me and she asks if we could talk. And I was kind of in a better place, but I was definitely still angry. And I wasn't really upset with her. I mean, I kind of was that she just sat there. Oh, this makes me think of this real quick. After the first conversation a year and a half ago, the one that went really bad where he called me part-time Jen, I had talked to my mom after that phone call, and I told her that I was upset that she didn't stick up for me while he was insulting me. And she said, Jen, that's not my job. You're an adult. And I was hurt by that. But at the same time, I recognized, you know what? She's right. But here's the thing. This adult or adult child thing is like a rotating door with them. When it benefits them, I'm an adult. When it benefits them, I'm a child. It's the weirdest shit I have ever experienced. I'm just like, what in...
Right, when it benefits them. Just like their religion. When it benefits them, they're uber religious and Christian. When it doesn't benefit them, let's not talk about it. It should be, now you know why you accepted the narcissist trash. Now you know why you accepted the narcissist trash.
What's going on? So when it comes to me wanting her to stick up for me when my dad's insulting me, she says no, and that I'm an adult and that's not her responsibility. But when we don't have the jobs they want us to have, and we're not bringing in the income they want us to have, then we're children. Then they need to speak up and tell us how worried they are, and my dad needs to go on his long diatribes of all the jobs he's done and how hard he's worked when he was our age and younger and blah, 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 and how he's a traditionalist. So my mom texts me. I get on the phone with her. This is like 3 days after this all happened. And we get to talking, and she's like, your dad just doesn't know how to communicate. More excuses. More gaslighting. And she's like, you know that he loves you. Your dad loves you. I'm thinking, what? I'm just getting so many mixed signals, Ollie. It makes my brain want to rip into 1,000 pieces. So then she explains to me that when he was saying traditionalist, what he was saying was that he believes, and I guess both of them believe, that the husband should be making more money. I make more money than my husband right now, and it is not an issue between us because we're a team.
Why do they even know that information? Stop telling. See, this is the problem. You tell your mother everything. She tells him. She torques up your father, who just wants to cripple you anyway. See, who he's really competing with is your husband here at this juncture. He's trying to show you, I'm better than your husband. That's what he's doing. Because he's a child.
And any money that we make goes into the same pot. There's no competition.
Doesn't matter. And you shouldn't be even having to be arguing this with him. Shouldn't even be any of their business how much each of you make.
No resentment, bitterness. We're a team. And it's always been like that from day one. And I explained all this to her. I was shocked. Like, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, what era are you guys living in? There's couples all over the place where the wife makes more. It's not a big deal. Like, what? I just was floored. I was floored, and I just explained to her, that's not how we roll. It seems very misogynistic. I don't know if you agree with that. Like, sexist. Now, there has been some weeks that my husband has made more money than me. When I first moved here to his hometown, we lived for like 6 months off of his inheritance from his grandmother. And then the hypocrisy. Okay, so my mom worked while my dad went to college, and they're pretty much living off of my mom's inheritance. So it's so hypocritical.
Again, so they're hypocrites. Look, as far as I think culturally, it probably is better that the man makes more. I think it doesn't bother me. My ex-wife, because she has a public school teacher being overpaid, made more than me. When we were married, it didn't bother me in the least because it all went into the same account anyway. Didn't matter. And it sounds like it doesn't. There's not that much of a difference between what you two make anyway. So, I think overall, over the long term, it's probably. But it doesn't bother me. It don't bother me at all. But I understand where the argument is. But that's not your father's argument. Your father's just coming from a piggish point of view, and it's about him competing with your husband. It ain't about what he make or what he make. It's about your father telling you, I'm better than your husband. That's what that is.
It's so, what it does is it boils my husband down to money. Like, his worth is in his money.
Right. And therefore your father's better than he is. That's what he's trying to say. Now you know why you accepted the narcissist trash.
And what he can provide financially. And it's not for a lack of trying. He's working very hard to find a full-time job, but every other area in our marriage, in our friendship, in our dating, in our marriage, he has provided in every area far beyond anything that I would expect from someone. And it has not waned. It has been consistent. He has never yelled at me. He has never manipulated me. He has allowed me to say no, and actually has delighted in me telling him no, because he knew I was in a relationship for a long time where I didn't feel like I had the right or the agency to say no to anything. He holds me when I cry. He prays over me. He's an amazing listener. He's an amazing sounding board. He's my best friend. And he's just a miracle. He's just a miracle. And so all of these things that he provides me, it doesn't matter to them. They don't care. And I know that they look at both of us like we're some delusional people later in life that have their head in the clouds and aren't like buckling down and doing life the way they think we should. I don't really care about what they think. I really don't.
As long as you're happy.
Finally, moving away from them was the best thing I could have ever done. It broke these ties that they had on me. And here I am over here trying to grow up. And you know how it is when you go through narcissistic abuse, you feel like a perpetual child stuck in an adult's body, like playing dress up. It's the weirdest thing. So I'm finally getting roots. I'm stabilizing. I'm getting healthy. I'm getting whole within myself and growing closer to my husband. And we have an amazing relationship. And they're judging us on our bank account. And when it comes to like the full-time job with benefits, it makes me very suspicious that they're like harping on this, even to the point of blowing past boundaries, my personal boundaries, and using God as an excuse to do so. So I don't know what your theory is, but I think it's money. I don't think my dad wants us calling him for money. I don't think he wants to help us at all. And
then you got to stop going to him for money. Then you got to stop going to him for money. I mean, if you're taking money from him, you're giving him the door. I mean, you gotta stop going to him for money, because you're just giving him the opportunity here.
I'm even, after watching your videos, I'm even thinking, yeah, I'm gonna get cut out of the will. And honestly, I don't care. I really don't care. It says more about them than it does me. I am so not about money. Like, I know it's important. I know we need it to live this life. We have to play the game a little bit, even though there's parts of the game that I choose not to play. But it's so sad. It's like they can't see my husband clearly to all the ways that he has helped their daughter heal. And all he is to them, the only worth that he has to them is, I mean, they're camping it as him being my, providing for me, which is a great, great cover, by the way. Like this, we care about you, you deserve better, we saw what you went through in your last marriage, and, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, you did see what I went through in my last marriage, and you didn't speak up. From what you probably remember from the first video you did for me, Ollie, I was married to a man that dressed up in pantyhose and women's underwear and wigs and nail polish and makeup and wanted to be humiliated. And my mom knew about it. I told her about it like 2 or 3 years into our marriage, and she didn't tell me to leave him. She didn't say, whoa, this is really not okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was telling your mother's enabling it. I mean, if you wanted him to stop treating you like a little girl, you got to stop going to him for money like a teenager. You got to. You have to. It's not worth it. It's always going to have strings attached. Always.
Like, this is sick. It's twisted. You're obviously not comfortable with it. You need to leave. Like, this is not healthy for you. Nope, she didn't say anything. And it wouldn't surprise me if she told my dad, and my dad didn't say anything either. So I can be in an abusive marriage where they see what I'm going through, or supposedly they say that they see what I was going through, but they don't do anything and they don't say anything. But now I'm with someone that's healthy, and they're crossing boundaries and giving speeches about judgmental, shaming, guilting speeches about why, we don't have benefits and a full-time job. And so then my mom turns the conversation on my husband. And she starts saying things like, we're seeing red flags. We think he might be taking advantage of you. Like, saying all this stuff to me. Now, granted, my husband, from the get-go, told them directly to their faces, I am an open book. I'm not going to be like your daughter's ex and hide from you and not talk to you and not share anything. I am an open book. I'm direct. So if you ever have an issue with me, if you ever have a problem, come to me directly and talk to me. And he's been consistent with that, with my whole family. But they don't do it. So my mom came to me, instead of going to my husband and saying these things to him, she put that crap in my lap. And if you're a person that has dealt with cognitive dissonance and narcissistic abuse, I had these flashes in my brain happen when she's saying these things, like these momentary flashes of, oh my God, could she be right? So then I'm questioning my husband, this person that has been like my rock and has been here for me in ways far beyond ways than my family has ever been there for me. And I'm questioning it. Like, she drops this bomb in my lap. And so because my husband and I don't have any secrets, I got off the phone with my mom. She thought it went great because, voices weren't raised, and I just listened, but I also explained some things to her calmly. But I was in shock. I was in shock that she said these things to me about my husband. I was like, what? And I get off the phone and we sit down on the couch, and I had to share these horrible things that my mom said about him. And here's the thing. She didn't treat him very well in the beginning. She was very suspicious and very vocal about us getting together, because we did get together fairly soon after I left my ex. And she didn't understand it, and I think they were trying to control me, and they wanted me to do things the way they wanted me to do them. And I was finally listening to my gut. And I had been a friend of my husband's a year before I left my ex. So I knew him. So I sit down and I'm talking to my husband, and I'm sharing these horrible things that she said. And I'm so angry because I'm like, my mom has apologized to him multiple times for the way that she treated him in the beginning of our relationship. And he has graciously accepted her apology. And he has told her, I understand the situation was a little strange. And I totally understood where you guys were coming from. But we've been together 3 years now. And these things that she said about him, she's saying it's concerns, these accusations that she's making, it just flies in the face of all the things she has told my husband or said about him. Any kind of connection that he thought or that I thought that they were making, that's blown. She looks like a liar, just an outright liar. And I don't know, Ollie, if she is my dad's mouthpiece.
She's his muse. I told you that earlier in the video. She's his muse, and she's accusing your husband of basically soft pimping you. Now, I don't know him that well. I mean, look, when you keep going to your parents for money, okay, and he keeps coming to you with you need full-time jobs, and believe me, I understand what the job market is, that finding a full-time job with benefits is real hard right now, but you're making it easy for them. So again, it's both your parents. It's both your parents letting you know that your husband's not. I have a better husband than you, okay, and I'm a better husband than your husband. So they're both coming at you from that same perspective. If you keep going to them for money, you're giving them the key. You're giving them the key to your boundary.
Like if she's a flying monkey. But even on the phone when we were talking, she was kind of like, not whispering, but she was talking while she was saying these horrible things. It was like she was talking lower, like she was afraid to say it. It was very weird, and maybe of course, here goes my brain thinking maybe this was really hard for her to say because she thought if she says it, she's going to lose her daughter or her daughter's going to freak out. Well, the thing of it is, I've gone no contact with them. And before I went no contact with them, my dad texts me this text, and he's like, I heard you and your mom had a great, conversation the other night. I didn't even read the whole thing, but I'm like, what? A great conversation? Yeah, it was great to you because she insulted my husband and like planted like horrible poison in my mind. Thank you very much.
Right, and you didn't defend it. You just sat there and you took it and you listened. So in her mind, yeah, it is a great conversation. You're giving her the key to your boundary. She's his muse, okay, and they're both in competition with your husband. Well, she's more in competition with you because she's letting you know she's got a better husband. He's in competition with him.
I see what you're doing. So that's the gist right now, and I just have no idea where this is going. I feel like it's going to just blow up. I've got another brother who is like me, who's an empath and very sensitive, and he also was married to someone I believe is a narcissist, and she cheated on him like 8 different times while she was overseas. And the last time she got pregnant and took their kids away and then blamed him when he met someone else. And when this happened, my parents were begging him to stay in his marriage. Like, who does that to your son who just got like put through the meat grinder for the 8th time? And Ollie, I hate to say this out loud because it's so upsetting, but the day my brother found out that my ex-sister-in-law cheated on him and got caught, some of his men died overseas. They were in Iraq, I think, or Qatar, and he was supposed to be checking for ground bombs. And he didn't check the perimeter correctly because his brain was so distraught over his wife cheating on him. And I don't know if you know about this, but if you take a couple of days leave when you're stationed, you get bullied like nobody's business. They just pick on you and make fun of you and razz you and bully you. So it's like men who need to take that time, like if someone in their family dies or they're having to mourn or grieve something, they don't take it. And it totally screws with their ability to do their job correctly. And she doesn't care. My ex-sister-in-law does not care.
Neither do your parents. And, he's in Iraq, she's cheating on him. I mean, your parents want to see all their kids miserable, apparently.
To the point where when my brother met someone else, my ex-sister-in-law blamed his new wife, blamed this new girl in his life for their marriage ending when she had slept with someone else and got pregnant, took their kids, and moved in with the dude. So the very fact that my parents encouraged him to stay is very telling. It's incredibly telling. I don't know what you think about that, but have a heyday with it.
Yeah, they don't want to see any of their kids do better. Okay, but again, this is where you shove that book in front of their face. Oh, they'll say like, "Oh no, till death do you part" or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what sect of Christianity this is. It almost sounds like JW.
I mean, I guess maybe because they're believers.
No, can't. Believers.
In Jesus, and they go to church. They don't want to have a son that's divorced. Maybe that's what it was. Anyway, I have so much more to share and say, but I'll save it for another recording because I don't know how you do this all the time. My voice is scratchy and cracking, and I'm going to lose it. Thank you, Ollie, for just being here. If it weren't for people like you, and if it weren't for other survivors on other channels and pages, I think I would be insane, literally insane. One of the biggest things in the beginning when I was healing that kept my sanity was just knowing that there were other people out there that were going through this and that had experienced it and that were hurting and growing and changing and becoming survivors. And gosh, you're just so funny. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. Please keep up the good work. I love your heart. I'm so sorry about your experience growing up. I've watched your videos from the beginning, and it makes me so angry for you. And I'm angry for anybody that calls in that just goes through this abuse. It's awful. It's devastating. It's life-altering. And it's scary. But I'm going through radical acceptance right now and just working on seeing my family for the people that they are, not the people that I want them to be or that I've pictured them being all these years. And it's really difficult, but it's also freeing. So if there's anybody listening or in the comments that is going through that, I just want to encourage you to radically accept the people that your family are and see them with clear eyes. Don't look at them through the lens of what you want them to be or wish they'd be. It's going to cause way more hurt and way more pain. I do have a good support system. It's important, especially when your family has a narc or a couple narcs. But I hope you and Charlene are doing well. Ollie, I hope the business is booming. And just thank you so much for your channel. And thank you for taking the time to go through this recording. Have an awesome day, and I'll make sure to send a donation with this audio. Thanks, Ollie.
Well, thank you for the for the audio, and I will say this. I will wrap it with this again. Now you know why you accepted the other narcissist garbage, but you gotta stop giving your parents, the narcissist, the keys to your boundary. And I know that's tough because they've kept you in a perpetual state of childhood where I'll just go run to mommy and daddy for money. I'll just go to, you giving them the keys to your boundaries. And now you're saying you're no contact. You got to stick to no contact. You got to stick to it. So I hope it works out. Thank you so much again for your contribution and story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like me to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all of this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Refuge from Narcissism. Take care, everyone.